right, welcome back to another amazing episode of What Else You Got with Mitch and Margot. He's Mitch, I'm Margot, and we're so glad to have you here listening yet again. Oh, and I've even got my glasses on. Do I look smarter with them on
You always
or
look smarter
smarter
with
with them
on
off?
and off.
Good answer. Do I look older with them on or off?
Well, if you put them on the edge of your nose, it might be older. Yeah, that one's older. That one's good.
This
Very
one's new.
youthful.
I'll go with that then. Except my eyelashes hit the inside of the glasses, and you're blurry either way. So
Well, blur is
what
only
else?
because of the software used to record.
What else you got, Mitch? Got anything interesting for us to talk about today?
Yeah, I actually have a very interesting one. I actually just got back from a team training thing, and even though it wasn't the topic of the thing that really got me was, what is your purpose? Because I know we've talked a little bit about the whys in the past, but one thing I realized as I was there was your whys are what your conscious mind thinks of, but your purpose, it sometimes you get the ability to glance into it, and that's really what your unconscious motivation really is. Your whys are surface in some form, but if you're able to break past that, you'll find the drive that's below it that explains all of your whys.
This sounds like it's going to be a therapy session.
Oh, okay. Should I get popcorn or tissues?
Have you ever eaten popcorn in a therapy session?
No, popcorn's to watch someone else's therapy session go funny.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah, tissues is when your therapy session's going funny.
Do have you ever used tissues in your therapy sessions?
I've been going long enough, I can't remember the answer. There's a
Um,
chance I probably used it a couple times.
I'm not a big crier. It's not something I'm good at, not even in movies. Other people can be bawling their eyes out in movies, and I'm just like, what are you doing? It's actually something I've worked on. I've tried to become a better crier. I've tried to let myself have tears in particular moments. And I am proud of myself to say that there have been a few therapy sessions where I've picked up the box of tissues, looked at the therapist, and said, we're going to need a refill for today. So, so yeah, what is your purpose? That's a very big question, kind of along the lines of how do you define success? So, what's your purpose? What is your lifelong purpose? What is your purpose in being here on earth? What is your purpose in being a human? What is your purpose in your community? What is your purpose in nature? What is your purpose in your family? What is your purpose at job? What is your daily purpose? That's a pretty big question. And is your purpose the same at work as it is if you're the only person out in the middle of the forest all by yourself, or out in the middle of the ocean all by yourself, where there's not another living human being anywhere in sight, miles away? Does your purpose change then? Or do you have one singular purpose for your life, no matter where you are or where your circumstances are?
That's a really awesome framing, and it's one of those that, at least for me, it depends. Because, of course, when you change your circumstances and situation, it may completely change. Because if you removed the underlying structure of your purpose or your why, does your why have a leg to stand on, or is it? Do you need to go to your other whys?
Well, and that's part of my question. Are you a chameleon? Does your purpose depend upon who you're around and what your environment looks like? Are you a chameleon? I think there's even a psychological diagnostic term for somebody who adapts, whoops, for somebody who adapts depending upon who they're around. And frankly, I'm not sure I'm not sure I want to be around somebody who is constantly changing their purpose. I think that if you have truly defined consciously your purpose in life, I think that that is something that should be in alignment with your core values. And if you have defined your core values, this is something that you carry with you throughout your life. Yes, we go through stages where we have changes and make changes, but if you have defined your core values, then your purpose should somehow be related to your core values, and your core values shouldn't be changing based on whom you're around and where you are. So, therefore, your purpose, if we're talking about one singular purpose for your life, your purpose shouldn't be changing either.
So I'm thinking of the purpose that I'm still incubating in my head to actually put words to the feeling, which of course you and I just love being able to figure out the feeling, which one of the things I realized is if you can get the feeling behind your purpose, then you probably have your purpose. If you can only get the words, then you probably don't quite have your purpose. If it's only feeling, but you can't bridge it to words, you're probably still missing your purpose. And it's when you can get both of those to overlap. And it's just one of those that I'm thinking through the one that I'm currently incubating. And as you're saying, does it change where you're at based off of where you're at? And the one I'm thinking is short answer is no. But if you remove enough of the surrounding environment, then my purpose becomes mute in that definition because part of my drive is part of the environment.
I I don't I have defined my core values. I don't know that I've ever on paper put what my purpose is. I think if I had to come up with an answer in this very moment, I think I might say my purpose is to serve others as a problem solver.
So that's one of the things that's a perfect purpose, and that's actually what my conscious purpose was before I went to this event. Of yeah, I want to help other people, I want to build other people up. But as I was sitting there, I realized there is built up unexpressed emotion that is actually my drive to do stuff. And then when I realized that, I'm going, okay. And then as I was explaining it to one of my mentors, I'm going, okay. It was one of those that as I was trying to explain it, because you and I, we both love to express our emotions, wear emotions on our sleeves. In reality, we try to do our best to hide them. And I'm just bawling my eyes out trying to convey what I had just realized is my underlying purpose. And so that's where I'm going, okay, now I just need to get to the correct phrasing of that purpose. And it's because surface, I want to help people, I want to build other people up. Just because I keep tiptoeing around it, the purpose that I've realized is I want to prove to all those who have suppressed me, oppressed me, told me that I can't achieve, I want to prove to them that they're wrong. Which is one of those that, all right, that when I say it like that, it doesn't quite seem like that much, but it's because I feel shortchanged, and because I feel shortchanged, I want to succeed beyond that to be able to help others, and that's where the help others is the extension. But it really comes down to I just want to prove that I can.
I'm wondering if you've taken that, what you just said, to your therapist yet. I'm wondering
No,
what
that's
their
Wednesday.
I'm curious to know what your therapist would say about that feeling of wanting to prove others who have oppressed and suppressed and ignored and everything else you said, prove them wrong or prove them that you can do this. And my my question mark is why, again back to the why, trying to understand the why do you have a feeling or a need to prove to others that you can do anything? Why? is that at the forefront instead of, for example, and I'm not saying one is right or wrong, I'm wondering why that is at the forefront instead of proving to yourself that you can.
Which, because I don't intend to actually go show people, it really is show that I to myself that I can, but by able to project it onto a target, I can see it versus if it's only internalized, it's hard to hit something that's inside versus something that you can externalize and put a face to it. But yeah, it's definitely one of those that really just depends on which way you're looking at it. Because yeah, I want to help people, I want to build people up, and but as we peel that back, it's why do I want to help people and build people up? Because I felt shortchanged where I didn't have the help and support, and then from that to be able to find that help and support. Why do I want to help and support others? Because the help and support was either you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, why would you do it? And it becomes the blockers, and it's the frustration of those blockers is what I want to overcome for others. And when we start breaking it down more, because I want to overcome the frustrations, the oppressions, the suppressions, I want to make it easier for the next person. And I start with what I currently know of this job did that, that person did this. I want to prove that those aren't the limiting factors that others saw. And that's where it goes back into my side of I want to prove that those didn't stop me. And yes, I'm projecting outward, but to your point, it's also I'm projecting to myself that I can see that they no longer stop me.
Hmm. Interesting, because back in the day when I used to be in sales and recruiting and I busted my behind doing that kind of work, I quickly learned that my goals needed to be set upon what I could control. Because early on in my time doing that, I would set a goal saying, I want to be number one in this category. I want to be the number one recruiter out of the entire company. I want to be, in the top 10 for sales for this company. Those were great goals, but they were based on the performances of other people. And I had no way of controlling how many people one of my coworkers slash competitors, I had no control on how many people they would go out and recruit. I had no control on how many products they would go out and sell. I could only control what I could do. And so instead of setting a goal to be number one, I looked at historical data that showed me what the number one person in previous years had achieved, and I would set my goals for the coming year to exceed that number. So I couldn't control what any of my coworker competitors were doing, but based on historical data, I could set a precise number goal for myself and I could bust my bum to achieve that goal. And so it was a goal within my control, and I had to put out of my mind that I still wanted to be number one, but I kind of had to put that out of my mind as the goal and know that I could not control whether or not I ranked number one. I could only control if I hit a specific sales mark, if I hit a specific recruiting mark. And and so anytime I hear an idea, whether it's a purpose or a why or a goal, anytime I hear an idea that is rooted in or based on other people, it just makes me feel a little bit of concern for the person who said it, because you cannot control other people. And so, and maybe I misunderstood you, but if your purpose is to prove to other people that you can achieve something, you may never be able to satisfy your purpose, because even if in your head you say, okay, purpose achieved, goal achieved, I have proved it to person X that I could do this. Well, person X could come and laugh in your face because maybe they're a jerk, and they could laugh in your face and say, "You're ridiculous. I never even cared if you could do that. And what you're doing is stupid anyhow." And so, if your why, your purpose, your goal is based in any way on another person, you could be setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah, and I definitely like that. Put it in where you control it, and there's multiple diverging thoughts. The first one, kind of like what you're talking about, how you want to be number one in a category. I don't remember the exact phrasing of the quote, but you want to be first, or you want to push the person who is first to break the world record. And
Yeah,
so
I love that.
it's one of those that, yeah, you're still technically trying to surpass someone else, but at the same time, you're willing to build someone at the same time because
Yes.
technically that's for like a sprint racing, but it's just one of those that you can still have expansion beyond the specific word because where you're talking about you want to prove someone wrong. Well, what type of or what person? Because at least for me, yes, there are people, the vague conglomerate of not specific individuals, of yes, they said at this point in time you will never achieve XYZ. So why not just achieve XYZ and don't tie it to a specific person, but use people as the unambiguous or ambiguous, whichever way you want to put it, glob of a projection of persona that you're then trying to surpass. That way, you don't have to go back to Joe and say, "Hey, Joe, you said I couldn't do this at this XYZ, and but I did." And to your point, Joe goes, "I said that. Why do I care?" But in reality, it's what is in your head that you're trying to achieve. And yes, you may have understood it as them saying you can't achieve XYZ, but it's you will achieve XYZ because you are driven to be able to beat your perception of what your oppression has been.
Well, and one year I had a book published one year, and it was getting tons of critical acclaim, and all of the critical thinkers in that particular world were saying great and amazing things about this book. And I had a shot at being the writer of the year for my state. And I was so excited. People were saying amazing things. And that same year, a much more experienced author from my state also published a novel. And his novel just happened to end up getting the Pulitzer Prize. And so, did I get the Author of the Year award in my state? No, because somebody who had way more experience than me just happened to write a book that year and it won the Pulitzer Prize. So, we cannot control what other people do. We can only control what we do. And if our goal or purpose is based on something we literally cannot control, we're setting ourselves up for disappointment.
And to kind of build upon that, it's one of those that yes, you were lined up for author of the year, but it's also one of those that, to your point, someone else jumped in and happened to usurp what you're going for. But the question comes down to: do you take that as a disappointment slash failure, or do you add it to your bucket of this is things that I must achieve for my purpose? And it's one of those that do you add it to the fuel to encourage you, or do you add it to the fuel to discourage you?
Neither, neither. For the way my brain works, I had to refocus and decide what it was that I was enjoying about writing at the time. And I wanted to enjoy the journey. And if there were going to be any accolades or if there were going to be any bad reviews, again, neither of those were within my control. And so I decided with that, because it was the first book I had written, I decided when that happened, people had been talking about me being the author of the year for my state. And when somebody else Not only got that, but got the Pulitzer Prize. Obviously, very deserving, very deserving. Cannot discount that at all. But I had to rethink, what was my purpose in wanting to write? What was my purpose in pursuing this as a goal at all? And I think it kind of circles back to what I said before. If my purpose is to serve others by helping solve problems, then I could successfully write, and the accolades or bad reviews wouldn't matter, because if my book helped one person, then my goal was achieved. Does that make sense?
So yeah, which I'm going to poke a little bit at your purpose of you want to be able to help others. Is there a underlying reason why you want to help others, or is it you're just a super awesome person and you just like being able to help others?
I'm not at, well, I guess it depends on who you ask if I'm a super awesome person. I could be a super awesome person. Um, I think I need to keep going to therapy, because
Great answer.
I think it is rooted back, because my therapist does a lot of inner child work, which, just saying it out loud sounds weird, but it's actually been very helpful. And so a lot of it is rooted back to the way we were brought up as children, and the expectations that our parents put on us. And as little kids, very, very little kids, we had to navigate and figure out what we had to do to survive. And so from a very early age, I learned that in order for my survival needs to be met, I had to problem solve for other people and make sure their needs were met first. And so that's something that I learned early on as a young child, and I'm working with my therapist on it, because things we learn to survive as a child do not necessarily serve us well as adults. And so for me to carry that long ago embedded purpose that was chosen by an undeveloped brained, a young child who had no real world experience, that purpose may no longer serve me now. And so, if I continue to live my life with a purpose of solving problems for other people, and notice I say other people, that doesn't include me in that purpose, then how am I living my core values? How am I developing peace in my life? And so this is something I've actually been thinking a lot about, is why am I continuing to do certain things that I've done over and over again? Because as you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And so, what is my purpose? I've been thinking about that before you ever asked that question. And I would like to redefine my purpose. I would like to evolve.
Yeah, and I like how you're going through and talking about how it really stems from, for lack of better terms, the underlying trauma of upbringing, and it really comes down to you have your externalized purpose of helping people, and at least for me, because yes, part of my externalized purpose is to help people, help improve their situation. But as I was going through this training this weekend, it was one that I realized that if you peel back the layer just enough, I can see the driving force behind why I want to help people. And I've watched a couple of different motivational sales and speaker videos that say you got to be angry about something. I'm going, I'm a nice guy. I can't be angry about anything.
Why
And
does it say you have to be angry about something?
Basically, you have to be in that state of discomfort that will motivate you to improve. And at least I think that's what I was going for. Because at the moment, I didn't grasp what was actually being said. Because understood what was being verbally said, but I wasn't understanding the root of the message. Because this weekend, I realized that part of my underlying purpose, which I was talking about how I want to prove to others, it's rooted in a anger of being wronged, which, yes, that's technically negative emotions, but it's the emotions that drive the need to overcome those and to um, remove that negativity by achieving your objective. And so it's one of those that I've always known I've had that little bit of cranky, but it wasn't until this weekend that I realized a lot of my drive, a lot of my whys is because I don't want that cranky to spill over to others. And so that's really what my drive is. And because I identified my cranky, my angry, and was able to put words to it, I can see how all of my other whys line up with it. And so, yes, rooted in negativity is not correct, but it's one of those that if you're able to find what is motivating your positivity, sometimes which that's where that motivational speaker was talking about, you have to find why you're not angry enough to do something. As you're able to find out the why do you want to get more in shape, why do you want to earn $1 million, it comes down to you're not satisfied with where you're at physically or in a financial state. Why aren't you not satisfied? Because you are angry about something which keeps you in that state because you haven't figured out how to turn it into the motivation to get you out of that state. And so it really comes down to, yes, I want to prove someone wrong, but going off of what we've talked about, it's not so much I want to go out to Joe and say, Joe, you suck, and here's why, and I have beaten what I understood as the why you don't like me. But it becomes the I want to achieve XYZ because I want to help the next person not have to deal with that same problem. And it's that motivation of I'm going to achieve big because one, I know I can, two, I know I can help someone else, and three, because at the end of the day, it is a good position to be in.
I do know that there is energy behind emotions, and my anger has always been my easiest go-to emotion. I'm totally comfortable in anger. That's easy for me. Uh, my therapist has talked with me a lot about how it is appropriate to take the energy from anger and turn it into a productive action. She reminds me that it is not okay to take that anger and spew it out onto somebody else. That is not okay. And what so she suggested that I take the energy behind the anger and go home and scrub my bathrooms. Use that energy to produce a good result. Um, I also, and I think I may have mentioned this before, I also found that it's helpful for me to pound nails into a log. So I have a log in my garage, a very nice hammer, bought a bunch of boxes of different types of nails. And if I arrive home from my day feeling angry, rather than carrying that anger into my safe haven that is my home, I go to the garage first and I will stand there and I will pound nails, releasing the energy behind that anger until my arms are tired, and that tells me I have released enough of that energy behind it to not carry it into my home, which I want my home to be a peaceful, safe haven.
Yeah, because I've learned that quite a few people do what's known as rage cleaning. When they're upset, they go and just rage clean the house, and they just take that frustration, that anger, to make it productive. And kind of like what you're saying, don't weaponize the anger against someone.
Hmm.
Utilize it towards your goal, and if you can't utilize it, figure out how to dissipate it. And
Right.
that's where your nails come in, is you're dissipating, and rage cleaning is utilizing, and then verbally attacking or attacking
Hmm.
someone else is weaponized when you're going, no, you want to utilize it. So that's where you take this commonly referred to as a negative emotion of anger, and you can make it into the fuel to build something out. And it really is because, like my therapist, the one word that she has basically never got me to actually apply to my current emotional state, I do a very good job of avoiding the word anger or angry. And considering I have said I am angry about something, to me that just says, "Hey, I figured out how to unlock that emotion, and I have also figured out how to utilize it into the motivation." Because I've always had the underlying frustration, because frustration was about as far as I could get it, of I'm frustrated about this, that, the other, and I can use it to work through something. But because it wasn't the, which you go back to Brene Brown, if you can name it, you can use it, uh, where the frustration wasn't quite the correct word and it wasn't quite focused in the right direction, because I'm able to use the word anger and point it at something very specific. I then can use it to fuel myself into the direction I want to go.
So, what I heard you say is angry is not an easy go to emotion for you.
No, I do absolutely everything I can to avoid the loose definition of angry.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating to me because my number one easiest go to emotion is anger. It doesn't matter if I'm feeling sad or feeling hurt or feeling betrayed or feeling any of those things. I will choose anger over feeling any of those other things because I'm comfortable in anger. Um, Anger is a fuel for me. I over my lifetime, I have been able to use anger as a fuel to get a lot of things done, whether they were worthwhile and productive, or if they were using using it as a weapon to tell somebody a thing or two. I'm sure there are plenty of people in my life that if I were given the opportunity to run into them on the street, I would apologize to them today for the words I said. I did. I used anger. I sometimes I'm good with my words, and fueled with anger, I was very good with my, not good, precise with my words. And I'm sure I have offended many people in my life. I'm sure I've hurt many people in my life because anger was always the easiest emotion for me. I didn't want to feel sad. I didn't want to feel betrayed. I didn't want to feel any of those. I don't know if it's because those, oh, my throat's closing up just talking. You've made me feel emotional. I don't know if it's because those other emotions are so closely related to crying, and as I've already said, I'm not good at crying, um, or if it's just I haven't wanted to look at those feelings of hurt or sadness or betrayal or trauma. So it's interesting to me that anger was has always been easy for me, and yet for you, you would do anything to avoid.
Yeah, and because I remember specifically probably a month or two ago, I used "I'm perturbed." That's as close as the word as I could get to anger, because it was still controlled. And because it's when you start getting into uncontrolled anger, that's where it gets loose. But if you're able to get controlled, directed, useful anger, because you're talking about how you can use it to achieve things, and I'm talking about how I'm going to use it as fuel. It's contained, it's controlled, but it's the uncontrolled anger is where it becomes weaponized. And when I was talking to my mentor, trying to put words to my realization of all this this weekend, he because part of the training was trying to identify personality types, not just your 14 personalities, but there's one that I can't remember exactly what it translates to, but it's known as PCM, and it breaks into personality types and how people communicate and work through things. And he specifically said, "You're a thinker. Thinkers avoid the feeling of the emotion. They'd rather think through it than to feel through it." And considering I was able to find a emotion that applied to my thinking and I'm able to utilize it, I I have surpassed the confining box of my primary personality type of thinking, where I'm able to then translate into the open-ended uh, utilization of the resource I have. And then because I am able to tap into the open-ended resource, I'm able then to direct it versus thinking I will skirt around the outside, do everything I can to avoid it. I'll take the long way to let that open-ended emotion dissipate in a loose way, but because I was able to figure out how to go through the emotion, that's where I was able to pick up the purpose and I was able to then direct it at where I'm trying to go. And so, thinkers avoid, I don't remember all the other types, but there are harmonizers that they try to feel everything out, but they don't have the direction with the let's go do something that a thinker can. So it's one of those that if you can blend your the general personality types, you're able to then direct it towards where you're trying to go.
I've heard you say repeatedly in this podcast, I am angry. I am frustrated. Have you talked with your therapist about changing that wording to I feel angry? I feel frustrated. I feel perturbed. Do you understand the difference? Because this is something
Yeah,
I've been working with my therapist on is we are not the emotion. So, if you have been avoiding anger for years because you don't want to be angry, um, you can start changing the words to say, I feel angry. That means you are not the anger, you are experiencing an emotion.
yeah, and I think it goes back to how I pick words, and I like what you're saying, where you can feel it, but you are not defined by it. And I think I'm using the I am because I am holding it, I am containing it, I am utilizing it. Granted, I am not identifying as it, but I am identifying as being in control of to direct it. As I feel is its surface, and you're keeping it not internalized. And at least the way I'm looking at it is, I am, I have contained it, I have controlled it, I am
Mm.
owning the fact that it is, and
I,
that
I
for
don't,
because I
I
have it, I can send it.
I'm still working on increasing my emotional intelligence, but I'm not sure I agree with what you just said. And I'm not sure your therapist or my therapist would agree either, because I don't think emotions are meant to be controlled or contained. I think emotions are meant to be felt and released.
Yes, which yes, feeling and traversing through is the passing emotion, and because I'm using the I am, yes, I am not holding, I'm not containing it. I am utilizing and trying to build with it. But yes, on Wednesday, my therapist will tell me the errors of my way. But this is as of April 26th. That's when we recorded this. This is the current processed viewpoint, and who knows? Tomorrow I might have a slightly different, but the crux of what I've expressed today is really it goes to I have the emotionally backed purpose that I am pointing in the direction that I want to go.
And that sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
And on that note, we've discussed a lot of things today. We've discussed what is our purpose, why are we here, what is our why, and what are freaking emotions? And are we the emotion? Are we feeling the emotion? Can it fuel us? Do we use it to throw in somebody else's face? Are we helping other people? Are we overcoming our childhood traumas? This was a lot today. So, how about we wrap it up on that note and ask people to leave us their comments and click the like button and join us next week for another fascinating exploration into purpose and why and emotions. Until then, I am Margot. He is Mitch, and we're full of emotions. Have a great day, everybody.